I tightened my grip on the steering wheel, knuckles pale, breath thin, trying to keep myself from shaking. People say life changes slowly, but mine flipped in a single evening, the night I realized the person I trusted the most was capable of destroying everything I'd built. I wasn't planning to tell this story. Honestly, I've avoided it for years. But hiding it only made the memories louder. The missed signs, the sweet lies, the stupid way I believed in love more than I believed in myself. It started 3 months ago, on the night I met her, the woman who walked into my life with the softness of a whisper and the chaos of a storm. She wasn't perfect, she was captivating. The kind of person who makes you believe destiny is real, even if your logical brain says it's nonsense. I still remember the exact moment. A cafe on the corner of Baxter Street. I walked in to escape the rain. She was sitting near the window, sketching something on a napkin. Her eyes lifted for just a second, and somehow that 1 second rewired the entire direction of my life. "Do you need a seat?" she asked, sliding her mug aside like she had been waiting for me. That's the funny thing about life. You think you're choosing a moment, but sometimes the moment chooses you. I should have walked away. I should have known that when something feels too easy, fate is usually sharpening a knife behind its back. But I sat down. And we talked like two people who had been unknowingly rehearsing for each other their entire lives. Her laugh felt like home. Her stories felt like truth. Her smile felt like a promise. But here's the thing Frank Kern always says about human behavior. When something feels unbelievably good without explanation, there is an explanation. You're just ignoring it. And that was me. Ignoring the red flags. Ignoring the way she kept avoiding questions about her past. Ignoring the calls she stepped outside to answer. Ignoring the way her mood snapped from warm to cold in seconds. Why? Because I was tired of being alone. Because sometimes loneliness makes you negotiate with danger. Because when someone gives you the love you've been starving for, you don't check whether it's poisoned. And what I didn't know then was this. The woman I was falling for wasn't who she said she was. And the story she pulled me into, the lies, the secrets, the consequences, would almost destroy me. But that part comes later. Right now, all you need to know is this. The night I met her was the night my real life started, and the night my old life ended. If you think meeting her was the twist, wait until I tell you what she tried to do to me just 48 hours later. I didn't sleep that night. Not because something bad happened, but because something felt too good to be real. You know that feeling? When life gives you a moment so perfect that your brain whispers, "Careful, life doesn't give gifts for free." But I ignored it. The next day, she texted me. "Same cafe? I want to finish the conversation we started." And like an idiot who thought destiny was finally being kind, I went. When I walked in, she wasn't sketching this time. She was staring out the window, trembling like she was waiting for something to catch up to her. Her face lit up when she saw me, but her hands were shaking. "You okay?" I asked. She swallowed hard. Her voice barely steady. "Can I trust you with something?" Now here's something Frank Kern teaches that hit me years too late. When someone asks if they can trust you without earning that trust, they're not looking for a friend. They're looking for a shield. But that day, I nodded like a fool. She leaned forward and whispered, "I think someone's following me." I laughed at first. Thought it was a joke. Until I noticed her eyes, wide, restless, scanning the room like she expected danger to walk in at any second. Every instinct in me said something was off. But every emotion in me said protect her. So I asked, "Who?" She hesitated, looked at the door, then back at me. "I'll tell you everything, but not here." And right there, I made my first mistake. I agreed. We left the cafe and walked toward the street. She kept glancing behind us. I couldn't tell if she was scared or acting scared, and trust me, that difference matters. Halfway down the block, she grabbed my arm. Hard. "There," she whispered. A black car. It was at the cafe too. I turned. And yes, a black car was parked at the corner. Engine running. Windows tinted. No movement. Not following us. Not approaching. Just watching. A chill crawled up my spine. Before I could say anything, she tugged at my hand. "Please," she said, "don't leave me alone." And those 5 words hooked me deeper than I care to admit. We walked faster, her steps matching mine, her panic climbing with every block we crossed. I kept telling her she was safe, even though I felt anything but. When we finally reached her apartment, she stopped at the gate, turned around, and said something I will never forget. "You don't know this yet, but you're the only person I can trust." Looking back now, I realize how dangerous that sentence truly was. Because the moment someone tells you you're their only anything, you're already trapped. But what she confessed to me inside that apartment, it wasn't fear. It was a secret that made me question whether I should run, or whether it was already too late to escape. The moment the apartment door clicked shut behind us, the air changed. It felt heavier, like the walls were holding their breath, waiting for a truth neither of us was ready for. She didn't turn on the lights, didn't offer water, didn't even take off her coat. She just stood there in the dim hallway, back pressed against the door, staring at me like she was about to confess to a crime. "Before I tell you anything," she whispered, "you need to promise me you won't freak out." See, that's the kind of sentence that makes your heartbeat do. Strange mathematics. Because when someone you barely know asks you not to freak out, it usually means you should. I tried to keep my voice steady. "Just tell me." She took a breath, long, shaky, terrified, and then said something I did not expect. "My real name isn't the one I gave you." My mouth went dry. Not because the name was fake, but because suddenly, everything she told me felt fake. But she didn't stop there. She walked toward the living room, motioning me to follow, and the second she flipped a lamp on, I noticed something that punched me in the chest. Suitcases. 3 of them. Packed. Lined up by the couch. I froze. "Are you leaving?" She didn't answer. She just sank onto the couch, elbows on her knees, face buried in her hands. For a moment, she looked like someone carrying a lifetime of damage. When she finally spoke, her voice cracked open. "I've been running from someone who won't stop until he finds me." A chill wrapped itself around my spine. "Who?" She looked up at me with eyes that didn't look frightened anymore. They looked defeated. "My ex." I should have been relieved. Ex drama is normal. Exes get angry, jealous, annoying, not dangerous. But that's when she added, "He isn't normal. He's involved in things. Illegal things. The kind you don't talk about unless you want to disappear." My pulse spiked. Every instinct shouted at me to walk out the door. But here's the messed up part. Her vulnerability pulled me in deeper. That's how humans work. We stick around for the pain we think we can fix. She wiped a tear from her cheek and continued. "He found me last month. Broke into my place. Took my phone. Told me he'd ruin anyone who tried to help me." She paused. "And then, I met you." That hit harder than it should have. I stared at her, trying to understand how someone like me, a stranger, got dragged into a story that felt like a thriller movie. But she leaned closer, her voice barely above a breath. "He knows about you." My blood turned cold. "What do you mean he knows about me?" She swallowed. "I think he saw us at the cafe yesterday." "That car?" It was his. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. Yesterday she was a mystery. Today she was a danger. And the worst part? A tiny, stupid part of me still wanted to protect her. Because something in her eyes didn't look manipulative. It looked broken. And broken people, they have a way of making you feel responsible for their healing. But as I stood there trying to figure out if she was telling me the truth or pulling me into something darker, she grabbed my hand and whispered, "I need your help tonight. If I stay here, I won't make it till morning." I should have walked away. But instead, I agreed, without realizing the help she wanted from me would turn me into the #1 target of a man who didn't believe in warnings. She didn't give me time to think. Didn't give me time to breathe. The moment I said yes, the moment that single, stupid word left my mouth, she stood up, grabbed one of the suitcases, and headed toward the door. "Wait," I said, blocking her path. "Where exactly are we going?" She looked over her shoulder, eyes sharp, urgent, nothing like the softness from the cafe. "Somewhere he can't trace. Somewhere I can breathe." That answer should have told me everything. Because when someone avoids specifics, it's never because they don't know. It's because they don't want you to know. But I didn't catch that. Or maybe I did, and ignored it again. Outside, the air felt colder than before, the kind of cold that warns you something is about to shift permanently. We walked quickly, her suitcase wheels rattling against the pavement. I kept scanning the street, half expecting that black car to reappear. "Tell me the truth," I said quietly. "Is he dangerous, or are you just scared of him?" She stopped walking. Completely. Turned toward me with eyes filled with something I couldn't read. Not fear, not guilt, but a mixture of both. "He doesn't hurt people," she said. And then added, "He destroys them." That line. That line cracked something inside my chest. Because the way she said it didn't sound exaggerated or dramatic. It sounded like a memory. We kept walking. Left turn. Another block. Another glance behind us. And then, without warning, she grabbed my hand tightly like a child crossing a busy road. It startled me. "Why are you helping me?" she asked, not looking at me. I didn't have a good answer. Not one that made logical sense. So I gave her the one truth I had. Because someone should. A sad smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. Like she'd heard that before, and life proved it wrong every time. When we reached the end of the street, she pointed to an old motel sign glowing dimly in the dark. "Just for tonight," she whispered. That was red flag number 7, or 8, or 10. But I followed her in. Inside, the motel smelled like bleach and broken promises. The receptionist barely looked up, just slid a key toward us after she paid cash. Cash. Not a card. Another warning I ignored. As soon as we entered the room, she locked the door, slid the chain across, then double-checked the window. Not once. Twice. I watched her, the panic, the care, the practiced movements, and realized this wasn't new to her. She'd lived like this before. A life where danger wasn't a feeling, but a routine. She sat on the edge of the bed, hands clasped together, breathing unevenly. "Can I tell you the real reason he's after me?" she asked. I nodded, bracing myself. She looked up at me, eyes glistening under the dull yellow light. "I took something from him." My chest tightened. "What?" Her voice dropped to a whisper so thin it barely existed. "A piece of evidence that can put him away for a very long time." My mouth went dry. My heartbeat slowed in confusion, then sped up in fear. Evidence. Not a sweater. Not jewelry. Not personal belongings. Evidence. "Where is it now?" I asked. She exhaled. Slow, shaky, almost relieved that the question finally surfaced. "That's the problem," she said. "I don't have it anymore." Everything inside me froze. "What do you mean you don't have it?" She stood up, walked closer, and for the first time that night, she didn't look scared. She looked desperate. "I need your help to get it back." And in that moment, I realized something painful and undeniable. I wasn't just helping her escape anymore. I was being recruited. And the place she wanted to get it back from? Let's just say, it was the kind of place you enter once. And pray you make it out alive. I stared at her for what felt like hours, though it was probably just seconds. The words hung in the room, thick as smoke. "I need your help to get it back." That simple sentence changed everything. No longer was this about walking away. No longer was this about hiding, about staying safe, about being a spectator in someone else's chaos. I had a choice now. And deep down, I knew the safe choice was gone. "Why me?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. Her eyes met mine, intense, unblinking. "Because you see the world the way I do," she said. "Because you know right from wrong, and because you have nothing left to lose." The cold truth of that sentence hit harder than any threat could. She was right. I had already lost so much. My past choices, my complacency, my trust in the wrong people. If I didn't step in now, if I didn't act, I would be complicit in her destruction, and maybe in mine. We spent the next hour planning. Every step, every escape route, every possibility that something could go wrong. She told me about the man, powerful, manipulative, untouchable. How he used influence, fear, and money to make people disappear, to silence them, to rewrite reality in his favor. The evidence, she said, was small, a single file, digital, traceable, but explosive enough to ruin him. But getting it meant stepping into a fortress. It meant breaking rules, crossing lines, and confronting danger head-on. I felt a thrill mixed with terror, the kind that makes your stomach twist, but your blood roar. This wasn't about heroism. This was survival, hers and mine. She paused, looking at me with an expression I couldn't read, part fear, part hope. Once we start, she said softly, there's no turning back. Are you sure? I didn't answer immediately. I thought about every wrong I'd seen done to people, every injustice swept under the rug. I thought about how it felt to watch someone you care about being hunted, cornered, powerless. And then I nodded. Yes, I said. I'm in. Her lips curved into a faint, fleeting smile, the kind that holds 1,000 secrets and promises. I knew you'd understand, she whispered. By midnight, we were ready. Everything packed, plans memorized, distractions set. The city outside was quiet, indifferent, but inside the room, adrenaline pulsed like a drumbeat. She handed me a small, unmarked envelope. Take this, she said. It's our key. I tucked it safely into my jacket, my hand brushing hers for a brief moment. A spark, fleeting but undeniable, passed between us. I realized then that fear can sharpen emotions and desperation can ignite feelings you never knew existed. And as we stepped into the night, shadows stretching long across empty streets, I understood one painful truth. This wasn't just a mission to recover evidence. This was the start of a game where trust was currency, danger was constant, and one wrong move could cost everything. But I also knew, in the way you know when fire is about to ignite, that once we crossed this line, nothing would ever be the same again. The night swallowed us, and with every step, I felt the pull of destiny, equal parts terrifying and irresistible. We were in too deep to turn back. And the man we were about to face? He wouldn't know what hit him. Yet, by sunrise, everything we knew about control, power, and betrayal would be challenged. And the first move? Would come from someone no one expected, including me. The city was quiet that night, but inside, tension wrapped around me like steel chains. Every step we took toward the building felt heavier than the last, as if the darkness itself was weighing us down. We reached the side entrance, less monitored, easier to slip through unnoticed. I glanced at her. Her jaw was set, eyes scanning, alert. I realized in that moment how much I trusted her not blindly, but because I'd seen the fire in her that matched my own. Remember, she whispered, one mistake, and it's over. No second chances. I nodded, heart hammering, adrenaline surging. I knew she wasn't just talking about the mission. She meant everything, our safety, our freedom, the fragile trust we were building between us. Inside, the hallways smelled of cold metal and faint cleaning chemicals. It was eerily silent, the kind of silence that screams danger louder than any alarm. We moved fast but careful, eyes darting toward cameras, toward any hint of a patrol. Then we saw it. The door to the server room. Our target. She looked at me and gave a small, tense smile. This is it. I swallowed hard. Let's do it. Every instinct screamed at me to hesitate, but I pushed it down. I remembered everything that led me here. Betrayals, dismissals, sabotage, humiliation. All of it had built up to this one moment. And I wasn't backing down. She typed furiously, her fingers flying over the keyboard. I stood guard, watching the door, listening for any sound of footsteps, any sign we'd been discovered. Minutes stretched like hours. Every second felt like a lifetime. Then she froze. Her eyes widened. They're on to us, she whispered. Before I could react, the lights flickered. A voice boomed from the hall outside. Stop right there. We both tensed. It wasn't just an alarm. It was him. Ryan. He stepped into the room, smug, confident, thinking he had the upper hand. But he didn't realize one thing: he had underestimated us. He'd been reckless, arrogant, careless. And now it was his turn to face consequences. I stepped forward, voice calm but sharp. This ends tonight. No more games. He sneered, trying to hide his panic. You think you can just waltz in here and... I cut him off. Not think. No. She turned back to the server, finishing the transfer. The evidence, our leverage, everything he tried to hide was now secured. Ryan's eyes flicked between us, realization dawning. This wasn't luck. This was precision. This was consequence. In that moment, I understood something profound. Fear is powerful, but so is preparation. Betrayal cuts deep, but control, true control, is knowing your worth and acting when it matters most. Ryan faltered. For the first time, he looked small, ordinary, mortal. And we were standing taller than we had in years. By the time we left the building, the first hints of dawn were brushing the skyline. We walked away, quiet but victorious. Not with triumph in our hearts, but with the satisfaction of justice finally being set in motion. And as we disappeared into the morning light, I realized this was more than just reclaiming what was taken. This was the start of a new chapter, one where respect, courage, and strategy mattered more than fear, arrogance, or titles. Ryan wouldn't forget this night. And neither would I. The game had just begun. Rehook for viewers. What happens next isn't just about revenge, it's about power, secrets, and a reckoning that will leave no one untouched. And, trust me, you won't believe who will make the first real move. The following week, the office had changed subtly, but unmistakably. Whispers filled the corridors, hushed conversations that stopped whenever I walked by. People stared a little longer, paused a little more. Some were curious. Some were afraid. And some were finally relieved. I sat at my desk, reviewing the aftermath of our last move. Every email, every internal memo, every altered document, it was all being traced, logged, and addressed. Ryan had made his first big mistake by underestimating me, and now he was scrambling to cover the cracks. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I hesitated but answered. Lily, it's Mr. Cole. His voice was calm, but there was an edge of urgency. Yes, sir. I need you in my office. Now. There's been a development. And this could change everything for the company and for Ryan. I felt my chest tighten. I'll be right there. As I walked through the halls, I noticed the subtle tension in Ryan's demeanor. He was trying too hard to look composed, but his hands betrayed him, clenched into fists at his sides. Every eye in the building flicked toward us, sensing the storm about to break. Inside Mr. Cole's office, he gestured for me to sit. I've reviewed the audit findings in full. Ryan's actions, they weren't just reckless. They were deliberate sabotage. I felt a cold weight settle in my stomach. I knew it, but hearing it aloud made it real. He compromised contracts, internal systems, and even tried to manipulate board votes. Mr. Cole continued, voice low. We have no choice but to take decisive action. But before we do, I want your input. You know the company, the people, the clients better than anyone. How do we move forward? I paused, letting the weight of responsibility sink in. This was bigger than personal revenge. This was about integrity, about protecting the people who had trusted this company, about setting the record straight. First, I said slowly, we make it clear that sabotage will never be tolerated. We protect the teams who were targeted. We review every contract, every decision Ryan influenced, and we make sure the company's reputation remains intact. And finally, we ensure accountability, starting with him. Mr. Cole nodded, approval in his eyes. Exactly. And I want you to lead this. I leaned back, feeling a surge of purpose. The fear, the betrayal, the sleepless nights, they all converged into this one moment. I wasn't just reclaiming my position anymore. I was shaping the future of the company, of everyone who had been overlooked, underestimated, or mistreated. By mid-morning, the word spread. Ryan had been called into a private board meeting. The room buzzed with speculation. People whispered, some afraid, others curious, many silently rooting for justice. And when the final decision came down, suspension, formal reprimand, and complete oversight on all major projects, the building exhaled. Ryan's power had crumbled, not with rage, but with methodical truth. I stood in the lobby afterward, watching colleagues return to their work with cautious smiles. Some came by to quietly thank me. Others offered small nods of respect. The balance of power had shifted, but it wasn't about fear anymore. It was about respect. As I returned to my office, Mr. Cole called me into his side again. Lily, I want you to know your leadership, your composure. It's reminded me what this company is truly about. You've done more than protect a deal. You've protected our culture, our people, our future. I nodded quietly. It wasn't just me. It's about holding people accountable. It's about making sure no one else is blindsided the way I was. He smiled, a rare, genuine expression. And that's exactly why I trust you to guide this next chapter. That evening, as I walked out of the building, city lights flickering like distant stars, I felt something I hadn't felt in months: control. Not the control of a contract or a deal or even my career, but the control of my destiny. Ryan had thought he could break me. He had thought he could push me out, silence me, and rewrite the narrative. But I hadn't just survived. I had rewritten it, with strategy, with patience, and with undeniable competence. And as I looked back at the towering building behind me, I knew one thing for certain: the story wasn't over yet. Because in the world of power, betrayal, and ambition, the real game is always just beginning. Next, the fallout gets personal. Loyalties will be tested, secrets exposed, and someone will make a move no one sees coming. Stick around, this story is about to get even more intense. The week after the audit felt like walking on a tightrope. The office buzzed with quiet tension, and every glance, every conversation carried weight. People were no longer just polite, they were calculating. Curious. Watching. Waiting to see what would happen next. I stayed focused, methodical. The Kingswell deal had closed successfully, but the ripples of Ryan's sabotage hadn't completely settled. There were still subtle disruptions, small errors, misplaced files, delays that hinted at someone quietly trying to undermine me. I knew better than to underestimate him. Men like Ryan didn't go quietly. One afternoon, I received an email from HR flagged as urgent. My pulse quickened as I opened it. It wasn't a complaint against me this time. It was a tip. Someone from his inner circle had leaked proof of his ongoing interference. Screenshots of altered spreadsheets, forwarded emails that hadn't been sent, calendar changes meant to create confusion, all meticulously documented. I leaned back in my chair, a slow, deliberate smile spreading across my face. Ryan hadn't changed. He was still playing the same game, thinking he could manipulate, intimidate, and control. But this time, I had the upper hand. I contacted Mr. Cole immediately. "Sir, we have more evidence," I said calmly. "He's not done. And it's escalating." His voice was weary but steady. "I expected as much. Good work. We'll handle this, but carefully. I want you prepared for the next move. He's going to push back." The next day, Ryan called a meeting with a few senior executives, trying to regain control, to intimidate, to remind them of his so-called authority. I stayed in my office, quietly observing through the glass walls, letting him play his part. Every word he spoke, every gesture he made, only reinforced the evidence we already had. By mid-morning, whispers started to circulate. The executives were hesitant, confused. Ryan's confidence was cracking, thinly veiled under forced composure. And then, just as he thought he had regained some ground, Mr. Cole stepped in. The CEO's presence filled the room, calm but unmistakably commanding. "I've reviewed the situation," he said, voice sharp and precise. "The actions you've taken to manipulate internal processes are unacceptable and a breach of trust. Effective immediately, all authority for high-level projects, client negotiations, and internal decision-making is revoked from you until further notice." Ryan's face turned red. His smirk, his confidence, dissolved into disbelief. I watched, quiet, letting the room absorb what was happening. No theatrics, no shouting, just decisive action. After the meeting, I returned to my desk. Colleagues approached cautiously, offering quiet thanks or simply nodding. It was clear that Ryan's reign of manipulation had ended, at least for now. But I knew the subtle war wasn't over. People like him never quit completely. They adapt. They lurk. They wait. Later that evening, Mr. Cole called me into his office again. "Lily," he said, eyes serious, "I know what you've been dealing with. Your patience, your strategy, your composure, it's remarkable. I trust you to oversee the restructuring of these teams and ensure this never happens again." I nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle over me. This wasn't just about me. It was about the culture, the employees, and the integrity of the company. Before I left his office, I asked, "Sir, what happens to Ryan?" He paused, thoughtful. "He'll have to face the consequences, internally and externally. But that's not our focus. Our focus is the company and the people who keep it strong." As I walked back through the quieted halls, the weight of the past weeks finally began to lift. I had been underestimated, sabotaged, and tested, but I had survived. More than that, I had demonstrated value that could not be ignored. The city lights flickered outside the window, indifferent yet constant, and I realized something profound. Control isn't about reacting to chaos. It's about shaping it with precision, patience, and integrity. And one thing was certain: the next moves in this corporate chess game would be mine to decide. Next, the personal stakes rise. Ryan's desperation will lead to mistakes, secrets will surface, and alliances will be tested. Don't blink, the tension is about to hit a new level. The weeks following Ryan's suspension were a mix of quiet victories and constant vigilance. Outwardly, the office seemed to breathe easier. Teams were working more collaboratively, conversations felt honest again, and there was a renewed sense of purpose. But beneath the surface, subtle ripples of tension lingered, the kind that reminded me that men like Ryan never truly disappear. They simply regroup and wait for an opportunity to strike. I spent long hours reviewing every project, every client interaction, every internal communication. Not out of paranoia, but necessity. Trust, once broken, had to be rebuilt slowly, meticulously, and with evidence to back it up. I implemented stricter protocols, ensured documentation was foolproof, and established transparent reporting channels. Every employee had a voice, and every concern would be traced and addressed. One late evening, as I was finalizing a quarterly report, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number: "Meet me at the cafe on 5th at 8 p.m. I have information about Ryan. Don't tell anyone." Curiosity and caution collided inside me. I had learned the hard way that information in corporate warfare was currency, and it was often tainted. Still, I knew ignoring this could be a mistake. At exactly 8 p.m., I arrived at the small, dimly lit cafe. The city streets were nearly empty, and the smell of rain hung in the air. A familiar face appeared from the shadows: Nicole, my former colleague and ally. Her eyes started nervously as she slid into the booth across from me. "You need to know what he's planning next," she whispered, voice low but urgent. "Ryan's been quietly reaching out to external partners, trying to poach clients and planting rumors about you. He's not done. He's playing the long game." I leaned back, processing the information. My heart wasn't racing, it was steady. I had faced him directly before, but the thought of him orchestrating chaos from the shadows demanded a new strategy. "Do we have proof?" I asked. Nicole nodded and handed over a USB drive. Inside were emails, chat logs, and recordings of his attempts to manipulate clients and colleagues. Each piece of evidence was meticulously documented, timestamps included. "This isn't just rumors," she said. "This is sabotage. If we don't act now, he could undo everything." I felt a shift inside me, not anger, not fear, but clarity. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about accountability. I had survived his first wave of attacks, and now I had the power to neutralize the second. The next morning, I presented the evidence to Mr. Cole in person. He listened carefully, eyes narrowing as he reviewed each document. "I see why you've been cautious," he said, voice grave. "He's trying to undermine not just you, but the company's stability." I nodded, calm and composed. "I don't want retaliation. I want it stopped. For good." He leaned back, thoughtful. "Then we'll do this properly. We expose the truth to the board, secure our clients, and ensure there's no room for him to manipulate anyone else. You've already proven your value under pressure. Now it's time to solidify the foundation he tried to shake." Over the next few days, the boardroom became a battlefield of documentation, timelines, and undeniable evidence. Ryan, despite attempts to charm his way back, found that every move he made was countered with precision. For the first time, his confidence faltered visibly. He realized that authority without competence was meaningless. By the end of the week, the board made a decisive ruling. Ryan's contract was terminated permanently, and new safeguards were implemented to prevent such sabotage in the future. The company had survived his manipulations, and I had ensured the culture was protected. Walking through the office after the announcement, I noticed something remarkable. Employees no longer whispered or cast cautious glances. They smiled, exchanged greetings, and approached me openly. Trust was returning, slowly but surely, and I felt a sense of accomplishment far deeper than any deal or promotion could provide. That evening, as I sat alone in my office, I reflected on the journey. 11 years of dedication, countless late nights, personal sacrifices, and the humiliation I had endured had all led to this moment. I wasn't just recognized for my skill. I had proven that integrity and resilience could withstand even the most calculated attacks. And yet, I knew the lesson went beyond corporate warfare. Respect is earned, authority is proven, and power without accountability is fleeting. I had seen it firsthand, and I would never forget it. For the first time in weeks, I felt a quiet, unshakable sense of peace. The storm had passed, but the knowledge of my own strength and value remained unshaken and undeniable. Next, we uncover the personal toll of corporate betrayal and how staying true to yourself can turn even the deepest humiliation into your greatest triumph. Don't miss part 10. It's where everything comes full circle. After weeks of tension, investigation, and careful maneuvering, the office finally felt like it could breathe again. But the end of Ryan's saga wasn't just about seeing a reckless, entitled man removed. It was about reclaiming control over my own career, my self-respect, and the culture of a company I had helped build from the ground up. I remember walking through the halls that morning, sunlight spilling through the glass walls, employees nodding at me, even smiling for the first time in months. It wasn't about heroism, it was about recognition, earned through patience, professionalism, and unshakable focus. I felt something I hadn't in a long time, a deep, quiet confidence. Not arrogance, but certainty. I knew my value, and more importantly, I knew no one could take it away unless I allowed them to. Mr. Cole called me into his office one last time. He wasn't angry, he wasn't stressed, he was reflective. "Lily," he said, sliding a thick folder across his desk, "you've changed more than one deal here. You've changed the way I think about leadership." I opened it to find the promotion letter for Director of Client Strategy, a role that gave me autonomy over every major account I managed, reporting directly to him. "I don't just want someone to fill a role," he continued. "I want someone who understands that power comes with responsibility. Someone who leads with competence, not ego. You've proven that. And now, you'll help me rebuild the culture here." I paused. The office, the team, the company, all the late nights, sacrifices, and battles had led to this. "I accept," I said, voice steady, "but under one condition: we rebuild the culture the right way. Transparency, accountability, respect. No shortcuts, no politics, no fear." He nodded, the relief on his face palpable. "Agreed." Returning to my new office, I looked out at the skyline. It wasn't just a view, it was a reminder that, even in the toughest storms, clarity and strength endure. I set about reshaping the department, reinstating talented employees who had been sidelined, creating reporting systems to protect against retaliation, and mentoring younger team members who were learning to navigate corporate challenges. Ryan's departure became more than a cautionary tale, it became a catalyst for change. He had underestimated the people he tried to manipulate, and the company had survived because loyalty, integrity, and expertise prevailed over entitlement and impulsiveness. Weeks later, the Kingswell deal made headlines in industry newsletters, the first major recognition that the company was not only intact but stronger. My name wasn't in the press release, but the acknowledgement from colleagues, clients, and leadership was louder than any headline. I had become the unseen force behind a major corporate victory. That day, I realized something crucial. Triumph isn't about revenge or proving others wrong. Triumph is about holding your ground, staying professional when chaos swirls around you, and refusing to compromise your principles. Ryan had been reckless, impulsive, and entitled, but I had been deliberate, strategic, and resilient. And in that clarity, I found freedom. Not just from Ryan or from corporate sabotage, but from self-doubt. I had learned to trust my judgment, protect my value, and demand the respect I had earned. The company would continue to face challenges, but I knew one truth. Integrity, confidence, and persistence always prevail, eventually, and in ways that no entitled man can sabotage. As I left the office that evening, the city lights reflecting off the glass walls, I smiled. The story wasn't just about winning a contract or securing a promotion. It was about knowing my worth and refusing to settle for anything less. I had been underestimated, dismissed, and sabotaged, and yet, here I stood, unbroken, unshaken, and fully in control of my destiny. For everyone watching, here's the takeaway. In life and in business, people will try to undermine you, steal your spotlight, or dismiss your efforts. What matters isn't their judgment, it's how you respond. Stay professional, stay deliberate, stay resilient. And most importantly, know your value and never let anyone else define it for you. If you think this story is over, the truth is, lessons like these never end. Every challenge, every betrayal, and every triumph shapes who you are, and in the next story, we'll explore how to turn even the toughest setbacks into your greatest opportunities. If you loved this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more shocking real-life tales. Stay tuned with Intiqara Stories, where truth is stranger than fiction.